did you all visit my file and did you create the table as I told you? It's very simple. You have to open the Sql developer and execute the chunks of codes by highlighting them. So you can copy and paste into that environment and first execute the create table product. Then you can copy and paste, insert into statements, and then select only the insert into statements and execute. Then after you whether the table is created and populated using select all. Able to create the products table and populate with the records. Right? Is it correctly created the table and populated the table, right? All right. Okay. Good. Then we can move to the next section. I hope you do not have any questions regarding what we covered last week. So we discussed about once a cursor is created, you have to open it, then fetch the content from the cursor, and then after you need to close the cursor. We did some examples regarding that. I hope you are able to complete that. This is the syntax we discussed, the syntax for creating, fetching and closing the cursor. As far as the cursor is concerned, when we open the cursor, it looks at the first row. So it is called the current row. Then whenever we call the fetch statement, it goes one by one further, right? So from the initial position, it's at the very first record or the row. Then when we call the fetch statement, it goes to the second one. Then again, if we call the fetch, then it goes to the third one. Likewise, one by one, it moves forward and get the next set of rows. Likewise, so we can iteratively call the fetch statement within a loop to get fetch all the records. So this is what I told you. You can iterate through the loop. Then you can get the next set of rows in the cursor. We did this example and we just discussed about these attributes as well. We did cursor with a simple loop. Did everybody able to do this correctly? The cursor to the employees table last week. So today we created another new table and populated the data with my scripts. Then we can do the next set of things related to cursors. If you look at how this works, if you were using at line 6, it uses is open. So here we are using the cursor attribute is open to check whether the cursor is open. Right? Because if it is already open, then we are not in a position to open it again. You cannot open the same cursor twice. And another process even cannot access that. That is why we need to close it and release the resources. Then when we do the opening, we should check whether it is already open. If not, then we can issue the command to open the relevant cursor. Then if the cursor attribute which is not found, it is fetch return any row according to the description. Okay. Then if there are no rows found, then the program will exit. If you consider this condition, it helps us to exit when we fetch the cursor after the last row. And I think I can remember I told that this way we can find out whether the last row is fetched, because it throws an error if it is already fetched the last row and then we ask it again to fetch the next row, then there's no more rows after the last one. At that point it gives an error and exit. Now if there is a row found in the program, that means we are before the last row, then it can continue. We can use found in place of not found. Then if we do so, we have to do the reverse of the program logic we used. Right? Since this is asking whether it's found, then yes means it is found. If we ask it if it is not found, then yes means it is not found. Right? Therefore, the logic has to be reversed accordingly. Then we have to be careful not to use it within wrong logic with these attributes. But we have to always key on the logic which you are going to implement using these attributes. With that, we did this one as then same as in the previous example. If it is not found, or if it is found, then we try to fetch the next statement at line 9 and return a row. So here we have used a while loop to iterate through the loop, iterate through the cursor. When the condition falls, in the first instance, the loop will be skipped all the time. The record again, we have to always process the record retrieved by the first fetch statement, right? Otherwise, you may overwrite that thing. We ask you to fetch again and again, or in all the fetch statements, the previous thing get overwritten. Therefore, you have to repeatedly do the whatever needful for each fetch statement before you fetch the next state, next row. Then cursors with for loops, as we did with simple loop and while loop. For loop as well. So here's an example. I think we did not do this one last week. So you can quickly try this out. Then you can practice your using for loop and writing a cursor within a for loop, accessing a cursor within the for loop, and do some useful thing. You can quickly try this out. Did you all completed the example? I have to keep in mind doing these example, you should be able to do something similar to this. These examples as well as exercises, and I gave you the required resources and all the scripts to save time, and then after based on that foundation you can do the practical easily. Then I expect everybody is doing the practicals. Right. Then we look at the PL/SQL cursors with parameters. Up to this point, we did not have any parameters. We just declare the cursor with a meaningful name and is we do of the thing using select statement. After the cursor name, you can define list of parameters, and it is much similar to functions and methods in other programming languages. If you take C#, then you are familiar with passing arguments, and you have to declare within the parentheses. It is same here. You can declare a set of arguments, and when you call the cursor, you can call it by passing the parameters. So this is how the syntax, and we since we have the idea with programming, doing programming, therefore we can directly move into the example. As we have already done, you can open the cursor using cursor name and by passing the parameters. Right? In early case, you could easily open the cursor without any arguments, but here once you declare it as giving arguments, you have to pass the required values. Cursor. Right. This is a typical example. You can carefully type this into your environment. To do this, I have given you the file required today, so you have to execute that. As I told you from the very beginning, with that foundation, you can declare this cursor and execute and carefully observe the output. Right? I have put some comments. So in the output window also you can see the two separate outputs. You have to be uh, very keen on finding those two outputs. One would be show mass products and other one to show luxury products. Okay. Okay. Try to attempt this one. This code works fine. If you have executed the SQL file which I gave you. Right? On top of that, because the table is available in the database you have, so I have prepared the SQL script for that. Create table and inserting values. Therefore, you do not need to worry on writing create product table as well as populating that. With the script you could do it very easily. But you have to focus only on the cursor with parameters. Okay. Here the low price and high price are inputs to this cursor and they are of type number. Right? Data type is number. It is declared at the declaration section. Everybody has done this one. Some of you have replied me saying they have successfully completed. Okay, next slide. So here, concept is the same, but we can assign a default value to the cursors in the list of argument. You can use this syntax as in the previous cursor keyword as well as the cursor name. Then within the parentheses, you open the declaration of arguments and have a data type. Then just after the data type, you can use equation mark, the assignment mark, and its default value. Then comma, if you have another argument, then you can use the other argument. Then data type and again assignment operator and default value. Right? Likewise, you can have many arguments for a cursor and you can define the default value there. In case you have not passed to the cursor, now if you take this particular example, here you have passed cursor called product. Okay? Likewise, if you have passed a different value, then that value will be picked. If you have not passed any value, then the default value will be picked to the cursor. Right? Let's look at an example. So this is the same example you typed and executed, and you can do only the modification to then you can observe the output and you can manipulate these values little by little and run several times. Then observe the output of each time, then you will see the difference. In the same code, and here I have not given any parameters to this one. Therefore, it should be 100 and 200. Early it was like this open C product 50 and 100. But now I have not assigned any value. When I open, then it picks the default values. You can quickly do the change, but you have to change several times, and you can also change here as well. Change the values here, and you can change the default values also. Then accordingly observe the output, how the output changes. Here the important thing is you should observe the output changes according to the default values, right? You may see some differences in the output, but it may be due to some other reasons as well. But according to the parameters, it should change. That is what you should observe. I think you have done that. So let's move into the another section called stored procedure. Anyway, today I'll be winding up the class a little bit early. Therefore, if you have any questions regarding whatever we discussed, you can ask without being silent. And I'm starting the new section, and I'll be continuing providing, and then I'll wind up the class. But anyhow, I think everybody is doing the practicals, and if they do not have any questions, so they can, it's better if they can keep quiet. But if you have questions, you should ask, right? Only several students are responding me. Right. Now, the new section is stored procedures. Have you heard about stored procedures before this semester? Right. Why do you actually use it? What is the main purpose of using that? Any idea why we use stored procedure? Are there anything similar to this in other languages? Have you heard about something similar in other programming languages like C#, Java, C++? Actually, we should have some experience on that. I think you should have found this in other database related modules. Anyway, stored procedures are something like functions or methods in other programming languages. You can label a set of statements or operations which performs a certain task, and once you define as a stored procedure, you can repeatedly call the function as we did with cursors. Now, if you look at the cursor, once it is declared, you can use it many times. Right? If you take this example, you have called this C product in two different places. Likewise, you can call the same set of instructions again and again. This set of instructions does the one or more specific task. Right? It is very similar to functions and functions or methods in other programming languages. It has a header as well as a body. Even in other programming languages, you have a header as well as a body. Together we call it the signature of the function. Same as this, you have a header as well as a body. Within the body, you do the useful thing using instructions. As with cursors, you can pass variables to the procedures. In other programming languages also, you pass the variables as arguments to the function. It is much similar to that. When you write a start procedure, you should have mainly three things: declaration section, execution section, and exception section. This is much similar to a PL/SQL body, and we can keep that in mind very easily. It's like a labeled PL/SQL block, right? It's a block you give a name, label with a meaningful name. Whenever you want to do the same task again and again, what you have to do is you call the procedure, right? Otherwise, you may need to copy and paste or execute the same set of instructions. If you had 100 lines, then you always have to copy and paste or alter the 100 lines according to many different scenarios. It is going to be very error prone and time consuming. If something went wrong, it is difficult to figure out. Therefore, you should use functions, that is stored procedures in PL/SQL. It makes things easy and fast, very efficient and accurate. I think you got the main concept. When we pass the parameters, you can as well as out parameters or in-out parameters. And we look at that. When you pass in parameters, you can get the inputs. If it is only output, then you can pass out parameters. If you want to do both in and out using a single parameter, then you can define it as in-out parameter. Those are depending on the context, right? Therefore, if a procedure wants to return a value using out parameters or in-out parameters, you can get that value back to some other processing. Right? So return values is, I think you are knowing that because all the programming languages do that part. This is how you can create a procedure. Create keyword as with the table creation. You use create table like this. You use the same create keyword here. And there's one another option given here, create or replace. This is to replace the same stored procedures there. In case you want to replace that with another one or new one, then you can use or replace. If you are newly creating the stored procedure, then you do not need to specify this. If it is already existing, without this statement, you may not be able to recreate the same stored procedure. In that case, you have to replace the existing one. Therefore, you can use or replace it is needed according to the scenario. Then you use the procedure keyword, then the procedure name, then list of parameters. Then this keyword, then declaration section, then after begin execution section, then exception section. You have to handle the exceptions. If something went wrong, you have to properly capture that and handle the exception and exception section. With that, you can complete the all stored procedure. As I told you, the create or replace can be used to replace an existing stored procedure. Further, they are optional. So if you need list of arguments, list of parameters, you can use them. Most of the time, you may need parameters. If it is a simple one, you may not need to use parameters like here, like this example. Here you are not going to output, take input or output anything rather than just displaying welcome to Innotech to the screen. Other than that, there's nothing. Therefore, we do not need any arguments here. Right. Is it clear to you? Now, if you want to get this welcome to Innotech thing as an argument, then you can list it in the pass that variable name here. Instead of welcome to Innotech, you can pass the what is the variable. Then at the calling time, whatever you assign to that variable as the parameter, it will be displayed there. Right? Okay, now you can quickly try this out. This example. Once you created it, it is not automatically executing, right? You have to first create, then you need to call that. This is the example for creation. Therefore, you should not, you may not see any output in the screen rather than the statements executed successfully. Right. I hope everybody have done that thing. It's a very simple one. Now we are going to execute a stored procedure. There are two ways SQL prompt you can execute using execute command or exe command followed by the procedure name. If you check the example, you can use exe procedure employee details. So I have it given here welcome IS, so you can use that name. This is an example. So you can use any name, then any procedure name which you have already written. Then if you want to use, if you want to execute that in another program, then you can simply use the procedure name. Right? You do not need to use the exe command. Right. I think with that, here's an example. But I hope anyway you can try this out. I'm planning to stop at this point, so you can try this out. I'll share the slides to LMS. I think it's better if Aloka can send me the link for your relevant location of the LMS, because as I observed, there are many links created. Then it's a problem. Then if I upload it into another one, then the someone else would see rather than you. Therefore, it's better to send me the link. I think Aloka can send me, right? Yes, sir. All right, okay. Then I can upload that to your relevant link. Then you can pick that from there. And also, I'm planning to upload the assignment as well. So it is asked to complete by around end of this month. Anyway, as planned, the semester ends by 2nd of July. I upload this assignment as well, so you can upload the answers to the LMS back again. Right. Do you have any questions what we discussed? You can try this example, but I'm not sure whether the employee's details table is available. If you can just get from the employee, change the required places, and usually this environment as it is. We could throw an error. Anyway, it's good to try, and I expect everybody attempted the examples as well as exercises discussed up to today. So therefore, you should not wait until the last moment to ask questions, and now you have time.